Rami had never imagined that life could change so quickly. A year ago, he was just a maintenance engineer on the Earthship Aurora Dawn, fixing engines, sealing air leaks, and replacing worn cables. Now he was married to Mira, a respected human diplomat working in the United Coalition of Planets. Their home was not a small apartment on Earth, but a spacious quarters aboard the station Harmony's Edge, a massive trade and diplomacy hub orbiting the blue-green world of Sira. Rami liked the station. Its corridors were always alive with people, from many worlds. Tall insect-like Trethons walked slowly beside quick-moving avian Zevri. Traders shouted prices in 3 or 4 languages at once. Sometimes Rami just stood at the viewing decks to watch the hundreds of ships coming and going, their hulls glowing under the station lights. That day, he had just finished repairing a faulty air filter in their living room when Mira returned. She was still in her pale blue diplomatic uniform, her dark hair tied neatly. She looked more serious than usual. "Rami," she said, putting her small datapad on the table. "We need to talk." Rami sat down. "About what?" She took a deep breath, as if preparing for something important. "It is about my sister, Lyra." Rami knew about Lyra. She was younger than Mira by 5 years and had recently joined the Bio Diplomatic Academy on Earth. Rami had met her only twice during short visits. Lyra was smart, friendly, and curious about everything, but she had never been beyond Earth. "She is doing well at the academy," Mira continued, "but her instructors say she lacks practical experience. She can recite protocol, but she has never spoken to an alien delegate or handled real negotiations. She needs to see the real work, not just study it." Rami nodded. "So she should get an internship here, maybe?" Mira leaned forward. "That is where the problem comes. The Academy does not have any positions on Harmony's Edge this season, and most senior diplomats are too busy to guide a student closely." She paused, her eyes steady on him. "I want her to stay with us, and I want you to be the one to guide her." Rami blinked. "Me? I am not a diplomat." "You are not, but you have spent 2 years living among dozens of alien species. You work with them on repairs. You know how to speak to them without offense. You have helped me at receptions, introducing guests and calming situations when tempers rose. You have something the Academy cannot teach easily, practical understanding." Rami scratched his head. "Still, I am just an engineer." "You are more than that," Mira said firmly. "You are human, but you adapt. Lyra needs to learn that. If she learns from you, she will not just memorize rules. She will learn how people, no matter where they come from, think and feel." Rami leaned back in his chair. The request was indeed shocking. He had expected to maybe show Lyra around the station when she visited, not to be her personal guide in alien relations. "What if I say no?" he asked. "Then she may not get the opportunity she needs, and her career could start much slower. Rami, I trust you, and I think you will enjoy it more than you expect." He could see the hope in Mira's eyes. Rami thought about the station, the alien markets, the crowded docking bays. Maybe it would be fun to show them to someone who had never seen them. But it was still a big responsibility. "When would she arrive?" he asked at last. Mira smiled slightly, knowing he was starting to agree. "Her shuttle is scheduled in 3 days, Rami sighed. "So I have 3 days to prepare." "You will do fine," Mira said, reaching out to squeeze his hand. "You will be her first real guide to the galaxy." Over the next days, Rami found himself planning without realizing it. He listed places to show her: the multi-species market, the Trethan Art Gallery, the viewing dome above Dock 6. He also thought about who to introduce her to. There was Harvin, a tall reptilian trader who loved to tell long stories. There was Sura, the Zevri shuttle pilot who liked human music. On the morning of Lyra's arrival, Rami stood with Mira in the station's arrival hall. Shuttles landed and took off every few minutes. their airlocks releasing streams of travelers. Rami scanned the crowd until he saw a young woman stepping through the gate. She had Mira's sharp eyes but wore her hair short. She carried one small travel case and looked around with a mix of wonder and nervousness. "Lyra!" Mira called, waving. Lyra's face lit up. She hurried over, hugging her sister first, then shaking Rami's hand. "It is so strange to see you both here instead of on Earth," she said. "You will get used to it," Rami said. "Welcome to Harmony's Edge." As they walked toward the residential levels, Lyra kept asking questions. What was the tall, fur-covered alien near the window? Why did some corridors smell like metal, while others smelled like plants? How did the gravity work when ships were docked? Rami answered each question patiently. He could see her curiosity growing with every turn. That evening, after Lyra had settled in, Mira left for a late meeting. Rami and Lyra sat at the small dining table. Outside the window, the lights of docked ships shone like stars. "So," Lyra said, "Mira tells me you are going to show me how things really work here." "That is the plan," Rami replied. "You will meet species from places you have never heard of. You will see how deals are made and broken. And you will learn that sometimes the rules matter less than how you treat people." Lyra nodded slowly. "I want to learn everything. I want to be ready for anything." Rami smiled faintly. "Good. Tomorrow we start at the market. And one thing you must remember. Keep your mind open, but also know when to stand your ground. Aliens respect that." As the station rotated gently around the world below, Rami thought about what lay ahead. He was still not sure he was the right person for this job, but perhaps in teaching Lyra he would also learn something new about himself. The next morning, the station's artificial lights brightened slowly to mimic sunrise. Rami was already awake, checking a small notepad where he had written his plans for the day. Lyra stepped out of her room, wearing simple travel clothes and a small badge Mira had given her that marked her as a student of diplomacy. She looked ready, but also slightly nervous. "First stop," Rami said, "is the market on level 12. You will see more species in one place than you can imagine." They took a lift down several levels and stepped out into a wide corridor filled with sound and color. The market stretched far in both directions, packed with stalls selling food, art, tools, and strange items whose purpose Lyra could only guess. The air smelled of spices, metal, and something sweet that reminded her of fruit. "This place is always busy," Rami said as they walked. "You will hear many languages. You will see gestures that mean different things to different species. Your job is to watch and learn." They stopped at a stall run by a tall insectoid Trethan. Its four arms moved quickly as it arranged small crystalline objects on the table. Rami spoke in a calm tone. "Good morning, Varric. These are new?" Varric's antennae twitched. "Yes, Rami. Crystal spheres from the ice moons of Sirath. Very rare." Lyra examined one. It shimmered faintly, and she could see tiny patterns inside it like frozen lightning. "They are beautiful," she said, softly. Varric looked at her. "You are new here." "She is my student," Rami said. "She is learning about trade and diplomacy." Varric made a clicking sound that might have been approval. "Then she should know that beauty can be a trap. Many buy what looks fine but has no true value." Lyra nodded. "How do you tell the difference?" "Ask the right questions," Varric replied. "Ask where it came from, who touched it last, and why it is here. The truth is often hidden in the path the item took." They thanked Varric and moved on. Rami leaned toward Lyra. "That was your first lesson. In diplomacy, as in trade, stories are as important as the item or the deal." Farther down the market, they reached a stall run by Harvin, the reptilian trader Rami had mentioned before. Harvin was broad-shouldered, his scales a deep green, and his voice was low and rumbling. He greeted Rami warmly, then turned to Lyra. You are the sister of Mira. Welcome to the market. Lyra smiled. Thank you. Harvin showed them a set of data crystals, each holding a collection of songs from his homeworld. These are rare. Few humans have heard them. Lyra picked one up, curious. How much is it? Harvin named a price that made her eyebrows rise. That is a lot, she said carefully. It is worth it, Harvin replied. Each song was recorded during a storm. The winds sing with us. You will not hear this anywhere else. Rami watched her closely. This was the moment to test her instincts. Well, he said to Lyra, what do you think? Lyra hesitated. She did not want to offend Harvin, but she also did not want to seem too eager. It sounds wonderful, she said slowly, but I do not know if I can pay that much without hearing a sample first. Harvin's eyes narrowed slightly. Then he smiled, showing sharp teeth. You are cautious. Good. Here, listen. He handed her a small player, and Lyra placed the earpiece in her ear. The sound that came was like deep voices mixed with the howl of wind through mountains. It was haunting and beautiful. When she handed it back, she said, It is as you say. Still, I must think before I buy. A careful choice is better than a quick one. Harvin gave a slow nod. You have the mind of a trader. I respect that. As they walked away, Rami smiled. You handled that well. You were polite, but you did not let the other side control the pace. Lyra felt a small glow of pride. It is harder than I thought. I kept wondering if I was saying the wrong thing. You will always wonder, Rami said. The key is to stay respectful but firm. Their next stop was less friendly. At a small stall selling mechanical parts, a short and stocky merchant with a mask-like face greeted them in a hurried manner. He pushed a set of glowing power cells toward them. Very strong, best quality, good price for friends. Rami examined one and frowned. These are old. They have been recharged too many times. The merchant waved his hands quickly. No, fresh from the factory. Rami turned to Lyra. What do you think? Lyra picked up a cell and noticed small scratches on the metal casing. She remembered Varek's advice. Where did this come from? She asked. Factory, the merchant said too quickly. Who used it last? Lyra asked. No one. New, the merchant insisted. Then why are there scratches? Lyra said. Her voice was calm but clear. The merchant froze for a second. Then he sighed and lowered his voice. Fine. They are refurbished. Still good. Still cheap. Rami set the cell down. Not today. Thank you. As they walked away, Lyra whispered, That was strange. That was reality, Rami replied. You cannot believe every claim. And sometimes the truth comes only when you ask again and again. By the time they left the market, Lyra's head was full of sights, sounds, and lessons. They stopped at the viewing dome above Dock 6. From here, they could see ships leaving the station, their engines glowing as they moved into the black of space. Lyra leaned on the railing. I see now why you said it is more than rules and books. It is about reading people, no matter what they look like. Exactly, Rami said. Tomorrow we will visit the council chambers. There you will see diplomacy at its most formal. But today, you learned it in its rawest form. Trade. Lyra smiled. I think I like the raw form better. It feels more alive. Rami chuckled. It is. But both matter, and you will need both if you want to succeed out here. As they walked back to their quarters, Rami noticed Lyra was no longer looking around with the wide eyes of a newcomer. She walked with more purpose now, her mind already processing what she had learned. Back in their quarters, Mira was waiting. She listened as Lyra excitedly described the day. When she finished, Mira looked at Rami with a small smile. I think, She is in good hands. Rami shrugged modestly, but inside, he felt a quiet satisfaction. The first step had gone well, but he knew the challenges ahead would be far greater than bargaining in a market. The next morning, Rami woke early. Today would be different from the lively and unpredictable market. Today, Lyra would see the heart of formal diplomacy. The Interplanetary Council chambers were not a place for casual talk or bargaining over prices. They were where peace treaties were made, trade routes decided, and sometimes where tempers rose high enough to threaten alliances. Lyra arrived at the table already dressed in a neat suit Mira had lent her. She had tied her hair back and wore the same small badge marking her as a student. She looked ready, but Rami could see the faint tension in her eyes. "You will be a guest only," Rami reminded her as they walked through the quiet corridors, toward the council wing. "You will not speak unless spoken to. Your job is to watch everything. The words, the tone, the silences. Every detail matters." The council wing was unlike any other part of Harmony's Edge. Wide arches framed the hallways, and the walls held banners from every member world. Guards from different species stood watch in polished armor or sleek uniforms. The great circular chamber in the center could hold hundreds. Each delegation had its own platform, arranged in a ring around a sunken center floor where the main speakers stood. They took seats in the public viewing section. From here, Lyra could see the faces of dozens of alien representatives. Some wore ceremonial robes, others practical uniforms, and a few had no clothing at all, their scaled or furred bodies serving as their own display. The session began with a chime that echoed through the chamber. The council chair, a tall, silver-skinned being from the planet Voska, rose and welcomed all present. Routine matters were discussed first: trade reports, agricultural agreements, and requests for aid. Lyra took notes quickly, glancing at Rami now and then to see if he reacted to anything. It was during the third topic that the mood shifted. A delegate from the ocean world of Thessa rose, her blue skin shimmering under the lights. She spoke, in a melodic voice, about the increasing number of mining vessels entering their waters without permission. The Thessa depended on those waters for food and culture. Almost immediately, a delegate from the rocky moon of Dravos stood. His thick voice was sharp. He claimed the mining operations were legal under an old treaty, and that the Dravos people had the right to extract minerals from those seas. The two began to speak over each other, their voices rising. The council chair called for order, but the tension was clear. Lyra leaned toward Rami. "They are not going to fight, are they?" she whispered. "Not here," Rami replied. "But words can cut as deep as weapons if used badly. Watch carefully." The Thessa delegate accused the miners of poisoning fish. The Dravos delegate accused the Thessa of blocking trade. Other delegates began murmuring, some nodding to one side or the other. Then, to Lyra's surprise, the chair turned toward their section. "Engineer Rami," the chair said, "you have lived and worked among both the Thessa and the Dravos. Would you offer the council your perspective?" Rami froze for half a second, then rose slowly. He stepped down to the center floor, the eyes of dozens of species on him. Lyra watched, her heart racing. She had never seen him in such a formal setting. Rami spoke steadily. "Honored Council, I am not a politician. I speak only as a man who has worked alongside both sides. The Thessa seas are their life. To harm them is to harm their heart. The Dravos mines are their survival. To cut them off is to take away their breath. I believe both sides can share without destroying what the other needs, but they must agree on limits together, not alone." A few heads nodded. The chair thanked him and then, unexpectedly, turned to Lyra. "Student Lyra, you have listened to this discussion. From the eyes of one learning diplomacy, what do you see?" Lyra felt her pulse quicken. She was not supposed to speak today. She glanced at Rami, who gave her a small, steady nod. She rose and took a deep breath. I see two sides afraid of losing something precious. I think fear is making them speak louder than they should. If I were in their place, I would ask what each side fears most, and then try to protect that before talking about what each side wants to gain. The chamber was silent for a moment. Then the Thessa delegate tilted her head slightly. You may be right, she said. Perhaps we are speaking from fear. The Dravos delegate gave a short grunt. And perhaps we are guarding too much. The chair smiled faintly. A wise observation from one so new. Let us form a small group to discuss terms privately with both sides and a neutral mediator. The matter was set aside for the moment, and the council moved on. Lyra sat down, her hands trembling slightly. I was not ready for that, she whispered to Rami. No one ever is, Rami said quietly. But you did well. You saw the heart of the problem, not just the words. By the time the session ended, the tension had eased somewhat. Delegates left in small groups, speaking in lower voices now. Rami and Lyra walked back through the banners and guarded halls. I thought you said I was only going to watch, Lyra said as they stepped into the lift. I did, Rami replied with a grin. But out here, plans change fast, and sometimes that is the test. When they returned to their quarters, Mira was there, reading reports on her datapad. Lyra told her what had happened, and Mira's eyes widened slightly. They asked you to speak? That is rare for a guest. You must have made an impression. I just said what I saw, Lyra said modestly. That is the beginning of all good diplomacy, Mira replied. Seeing clearly before speaking. That night, as Lyra lay in bed, she thought about the way the Thessa and Dravos had argued. She remembered the way the room had gone silent after her words. It felt strange but also powerful to speak and be heard by so many. She wondered what tomorrow would bring, and if she was truly ready for the paths her sister and Rami were leading her toward. 2 days after the council session, Rami and Lyra were having breakfast when Mira walked in with an unusual look on her face. She held a sealed message crystal and set it on the table. This came from the council chair, she said. Rami, they want you to escort a shipment of medical supplies to the colony on Varela Prime. There has been an outbreak of a rare illness there, and the supplies are urgently needed. Rami raised an eyebrow. Why me? Because the supplies were requested by both human and alien settlers, Mira explained. Tensions are high there. They need someone neutral to deliver them without either side thinking the other is in control. And she paused. They are allowing you to take Lyra as part of her training. Lyra almost dropped her spoon. Me? Off the station? This will be a short trip, Mira said. But it will give you a chance to see how diplomacy works when people are frightened and desperate. Rami studied Lyra for a moment. It will not be like the market or the council chamber, he warned. This will be real. People may be upset. They may not welcome us. I can handle it, Lyra said quickly, though she felt a flutter of doubt inside. An hour later, they boarded. A small courier ship provided by the station. The cargo bay was filled with sealed crates marked with the medical emblem of the United Coalition. A short, stocky pilot named Bran greeted them at the hatch. We leave in 5 minutes. Strap in and stay clear of the bay doors when we dock. The trip to Varela Prime took only half a day through the jump corridor. Lyra spent the time reviewing information on the colony. The human settlers lived in one main city, while the native Saravi, a tall, thin species with pale skin and black eyes, lived in several villages nearby. Both communities were suffering from the same illness, but disagreements over treatment and resource sharing had caused mistrust to grow. When they landed, the air outside was warm and smelled faintly of rain. The colony's landing field was busy, but Lyra noticed at once that the human and Saravi workers kept their distance from each other. Rami saw it too and gave her a small nod to confirm her observation. They were met by two representatives. One was a human woman named Tessa, wearing a practical uniform. The other was a Scifi male named Orin, dressed in a simple woven robe. Both greeted Rami politely but looked at each other with a hint of caution. "We appreciate your arrival," Tessa said. "We have been waiting for these supplies for days." "As have we," Orin added, his voice low. "Our people are growing weak." Rami kept his tone even. "The supplies will be divided according to the list agreed upon by both councils on the station. I am here only to ensure they reach those in need." Tessa and Orin both nodded, but Lyra could sense their unease. She stayed quiet as the cargo was unloaded. Workers from both sides came forward, but they avoided eye contact with each other. Once the crates were in the storage building, a new argument began. Tessa insisted the supplies should be distributed from the Human Medical Center. Orin claimed they should be divided in the open so both sides could witness fairness. Voices began to rise. Rami stepped between them. "If you keep arguing, the supplies will sit here while people grow sicker. Decide on a process now, or I will lock this building until you do." The firmness in his voice made both pause. Lyra watched closely, realizing that sometimes diplomacy required more steel than softness. Finally, Tessa sighed. "We will do it. In the open, with equal representation." Orin gave a short nod. "Agreed." Distribution began that afternoon. Lyra was given the task of checking each crate against the list. She worked alongside a young Scifi woman named Senra, who spoke with a soft accent. At first, they spoke only about the supplies, but slowly their conversation widened. Senra told her about the Scifi traditions of healing and how their herbal treatments were now running short. As the day went on, a sudden commotion broke out near the gate. A group of settlers from both communities had gathered, shouting at each other. One man accused the other side of taking more than their share. Another claimed the supplies had been tampered with. Rami moved quickly to the gate, holding up his hands. "Stop this now. No one will get more if you fight. We will recheck the crates together." But the anger was strong. Lyra could see that words alone might not calm them. She stepped forward, her voice steady but clear. "I was the one checking the crates with Senra. We counted everything. Nothing was missing. If anyone doubts, I will show you the full record right now." Some of the crowd muttered, but they began to quiet as she brought out the data pad and displayed the inventory. Senra stood beside her and confirmed the numbers in her own language for the Scifi. Slowly, the tension eased. Tessa came over and said quietly to Rami, "Your student is braver than she looks." That evening, after the last crate was delivered, Tessa and Orin joined Rami and Lyra for a small meal in the Human Settlement's meeting hall. The earlier stiffness between the two had faded slightly. They spoke of the illness, of the weather, and even of the station above their world. When they returned to the ship, Lyra leaned back in her seat and let out a long breath. "That was harder than the council session," she admitted, "because there was no time to think," Rami said. "When people are sick or afraid, they act fast. You have to act just as fast, but with a clear head." "I think I understand that now," Lyra said. She looked out the window at the fading lights of the colony. "It feels different when you see the people who are suffering." Rami nodded. "That is why diplomacy is more than words in a chamber. It is about being where the need is and helping both sides see the value in working together." As the ship lifted into the sky, Lyra thought about the faces she had seen that day. She had not solved their deeper mistrust, but for one moment they had stood together without anger. And maybe, she thought, that was the first step toward something better. The journey back to Harmony's Edge was smooth. Lyra spent much of the time replaying the events of Virella Prime in her head. She could still see the worried faces of the settlers and hear the relief in their voices when the supplies reached them. She had been proud to help, but she also knew the deeper tensions on that world were far from resolved. When the ship docked, Mira was waiting for them. She listened to their report with interest as they walked through the station's long corridors, toward their quarters. "It sounds like you both handled yourselves well," she said. "But you should be prepared. Things here have been unsettled." Rami glanced at her. "Unsettled how?" Mira lowered her voice. "There have been rumors of missing cargo from the station's central depot. Some traders claim vital shipments never reached their buyers. The problem is, no one knows if the goods were stolen, lost, or misdelivered. And now some delegates are accusing each other of sabotage." Lyra frowned. "How does that affect us?" "Because you two just returned from a successful supply delivery," Mira replied. "People may look to you as proof that shipments can be handled fairly. Others may suspect you of being involved." By the time they reached their quarters, Rami could already feel the tension in the air. The usual hum of voices in the nearby corridors was sharper, quicker. Groups of traders stood together in tight circles, speaking in low tones. Later that day, Rami took Lyra to the station's central concourse to meet Harvin, the reptilian trader from the market. Harvin's usually calm expression was taut with frustration. "Rami, the shipment of Serath crystals I ordered 2 weeks ago is gone," Harvin said. "The manifest shows it arrived, but the crates never reached my stall. And I am not the only one missing goods. If this continues, trade agreements will collapse." Lyra asked, "Has anyone investigated?" "Everyone claims they are investigating," Harvin replied. "But the longer it takes, the more people blame each other." Rami promised to ask around, but as they walked away, he told Lyra quietly, "We must be careful. This is not a simple misunderstanding. Someone benefits from this." Confusion! That evening, Mira arranged for them to attend a small gathering of delegates in one of the private lounges. The room was comfortable, with soft lighting and curved seating areas. Refreshments were set out on low tables, but the mood was tense. Human delegate named Corvin greeted them first. "Ah, Rami, Lyra. I hear you handled the Varela mission well. A shame the same efficiency is missing from our own depot." His tone was smooth, but his eyes were sharp. Before Rami could reply, a Saravi delegate named Joran stepped forward. "It is easy to succeed when the cargo belongs to someone else. Perhaps you should be put in charge of all shipments. That way, if something goes missing, we know who to blame." Lyra felt her pulse quicken. She could see where this was going. "We only delivered what was given to us," she said firmly. "If something is wrong here, we should find the truth before pointing fingers." Several delegates murmured in agreement, but others looked away. The distrust in the room was thick. As the gathering went on, Lyra noticed something. Whenever the subject of missing cargo came up, a short, wiry man in the corner would slip away for a few minutes, only to return when the talk had shifted. She quietly told Rami, who nodded but said nothing until they were alone later. "You saw it too," he said. "That is Carvin, a transport clerk. His job gives him access to every shipment record. If anyone could hide cargo, it would be someone like him." The next day, Rami and Lyra went to the depot under the excuse of checking the delivery records from Varela. The depot was a massive space filled with stacked crates, cargo drones, and busy workers. Carvin was at a console, entering data with quick, practiced movements. Rami approached casually. "Morning, Carvin. Just here to confirm the paperwork from our last trip." Carvin smiled thinly. "Everything is in order." While Rami spoke with him, Lyra moved to a nearby screen and scrolled through the public manifest logs. She noticed something odd. Several shipments listed as in storage were tagged with location codes that did not exist in the station's layout. She quickly copied the codes into her small datapad before Carvin noticed. Back in their quarters, Lyra showed Rami the list. "These location codes are fake. Whoever made them is hiding cargo in places that are not part of the official storage maps. Rami studied the list. Which means the goods are still here, just moved somewhere they are not supposed to be. They decided to investigate quietly before informing Mira. That night, they went to one of the unused lower decks marked by the false code. The corridors were dim, and the air smelled faintly of dust. At the far end of the deck, they found a sealed maintenance door. Using a general access override, Rami opened it. Inside were dozens of crates stacked high, their markings matching, the reports of missing cargo. Lyra felt a rush of excitement and unease. "Now we know where they are," she whispered. "Finding them is only half the battle," Rami said. "The moment we report this, the person behind it will try to cover their tracks or turn suspicion on us." They quietly closed the door and returned before anyone noticed. Mira listened to their report with a serious expression. "You did well. But if Carvin is involved, we cannot accuse him without proof of his actions. Tomorrow, we will bring the council chair to see the crates. But until then, say nothing to anyone." That night, as Lyra lay in bed, she thought about how quickly suspicion could poison trust. The market, the council, Varela Prime, each had shown her different sides of diplomacy. But here on the station, she was learning that sometimes the hardest battles were the ones fought in whispers behind closed doors. The next morning, Rami, Lyra, and Mira met quietly in their quarters to plan their next move. The discovery of the hidden crates confirmed that someone was stealing cargo and hiding it within the station. But now they needed proof to catch the culprit. Mira spoke first. "We cannot accuse Carvin without evidence, but if he thinks we do not know, he may try again. We need to watch." Rami nodded. "I will work with the station security to set up surveillance near the hidden storage." Lyra looked determined. "I want to help. I can watch the manifest records and track unusual movements." Mira smiled. "Good. You have learned quickly." That afternoon, Rami met with Captain Valen, the head of station security. Valen was a tall, armored figure with a calm voice. "We will place cameras in the corridors near the hidden storage. The tricky part will be covering it without alerting Carvin," Rami agreed. "We do not want him to see us watching. That would make him disappear for good." While security installed the hidden cameras, Lyra spent hours reviewing shipment records. She noticed small changes in the logs at odd times. Someone was altering manifests to hide movements of certain crates. Late that night, Lyra sent a private message to Rami. "There is a pattern. Carvin always accesses the records around midnight. That might be when he moves the cargo." Rami replied quickly. "I will arrange for security to increase patrols at that time." The next day, the trio prepared to wait and watch. Lyra felt nervous but ready. This was the kind of challenge she had hoped to face when she started her training. At midnight, the station was quiet except for the hum of machinery. Hidden cameras recorded every movement near the secret storage door. Suddenly, the door hissed open. A figure slipped out. It was Carvin. He carried a small device that looked like a scanner and a data pad. He glanced around cautiously before heading down the hall. Rami, watching the camera feed, whispered into his communicator, "Security teams, follow him quietly." Carvin moved quickly but carefully. He stopped at a service elevator and used a code to open it. The elevator descended, carrying him and the stolen cargo to another part of the station. Lyra's heart raced as she watched. "Where is he taking it?" Rami shook his head. "I don't know yet, but we are close." The security team followed. Carvin to a restricted level rarely used for official business. The elevator opened to a dimly lit corridor filled with old maintenance rooms. Carvin stopped in front of one and used his device to unlock the door. Inside was a small warehouse, crowded with crates and equipment. Carvin began unloading the stolen goods, stacking them with care. Rami's voice was steady but firm. "Carvin, You are under arrest for theft and conspiracy." Carvin spun around, surprise and anger flashing in his eyes. "How did you find me?" Lyra stepped forward, holding up the datapad. "We have records, video, and witnesses. You cannot deny the evidence." Carvin's shoulders sagged. "You think you have won, but this is bigger than me. There are others behind this." Mira arrived with security officers. She looked at Carvin with a mix of disappointment and determination. "We will find out the truth. But first, you must answer for your actions." As Carvin was escorted away, Rami turned to Lyra. "You did well. Your attention to detail made this possible." Lyra smiled, feeling a new confidence. "Thank you. But if Carvin says others are involved, what happens next?" Mira looked serious. "That is the real test. Diplomacy is not just about fixing problems, but uncovering hidden threats and keeping the peace." Back in their quarters, Lyra thought about the journey so far. From the busy market to the tense council, from the dangerous colony to catching a thief, she had learned much more than she expected. Rami put a hand on her shoulder. "You are becoming a diplomat in your own right." Lyra looked out the window, at the stars beyond the station. "I hope so. There is still so much to learn." After Carvin's arrest, the station seemed quieter but also more tense. Rumors spread quickly, and many wondered if this was the end of the cargo thefts or just the beginning. Mira, Rami, and Lyra met with the council chair and several trusted delegates in a secure room. The chair, the silver-skinned Voskan, looked grave. "Carvin has confessed that others were involved. This is a serious threat to our station and the trust we have built." Rami nodded. "We must find those who are behind this before they do more damage." Lyra listened carefully. She felt the weight of responsibility growing. This was no longer just about learning. It was about protecting everyone she cared for. The investigation began with reviewing communication logs and shipment data. Lyra spent long hours examining records, looking for anything that Carvin might have missed. One evening, she noticed a strange pattern. Several messages were sent at odd hours between unknown users. The messages were brief, but carried a code that suggested coordination. She shared her findings with Rami. "These are not random. Someone is directing the thefts." Rami frowned. "We need to trace these messages and identify the source." With the help of station security, they tracked the signals to a private office used by a delegate from a minor trade world called Siler. The delegate, a tall being with dark eyes and a calm voice, was called Zarn. When confronted, Zarn denied any involvement. But the evidence was strong, and under pressure, he admitted that a small group of traders was unhappy with recent trade agreements. They believed stealing cargo and disrupting shipments would force the council to renegotiate terms more favorable to them. The council chair spoke firmly. "Sabotage to gain power threatens the peace of all. This cannot be allowed." Lyra watched as the delegates agreed to new measures to strengthen security and increase cooperation. She felt proud that her work had helped expose the threat. But there was more. Zarn revealed names of others involved, some from powerful trading houses and even some council members. The station had to act carefully to avoid a larger conflict. Mira took charge of coordinating the investigation, while Rami and Lyra worked on rebuilding trust among traders. One day, Lyra was invited to speak before a small assembly of traders and delegates. She stood nervously, but remembered her lessons from the market and council sessions. "Trust is the foundation of any agreement," she said. "When trust breaks, we all suffer. But we can rebuild it by being honest and working together. I ask you to join me in making this station a place where fairness matters." Her words were met with thoughtful silence, then nods and quiet applause. As weeks passed, the stolen cargo was returned or compensated for, and new systems were put in place to prevent future thefts. The station's atmosphere began to lighten. 1. Evening. Rami and Lyra stood on the viewing deck looking at the stars beyond. "You have grown," Rami said softly, "not just in skill, but in heart." Lyra smiled. "I could not have done it without you and Mira. Thank you for trusting me." Rami looked at her with respect. "The future of this station depends on people like you, people who care enough to listen and act." Lyra felt a deep sense of purpose. She knew there would always be challenges ahead, but she was ready to face them. Together they watched the ships come and go, knowing that out here in the vastness of space, peace was a choice they would make every day.